Hi, boys and girls. Today I'm going to do a math lesson with you, and the topic is non-standard units of length. So basically what non-standard means is that we're going to be measuring things with items that we wouldn't typically use to measure. So in science we used meter sticks and rulers to measure how long things were, and those are standard units when we talk about inches and centimeters, but non-standard just means we're using different types of things. So again, our essential question for what we're working on now is how do I determine length and time, but we're just focusing on length today. So here's a problem of the day that you can do. It says to use a hundreds chart. If you have a hundreds chart, that's great. If you don't, hopefully you can still do this just by counting. So you need to choose a number that's between 1 and 10. Then you're going to start with that number and count by fives and stop when you get to 50 or just past 50. You could also start with your number and count up by tens. So you can pause this video so you can try doing that. Here are some review questions that kind of go along with the other video I did about length. So the first one says, circle which item is longer. So it looks like we have some kind of trumpet and maybe a clarinet. Which one is longer? The trumpet is longer. And down here, which one is longer, the chair or the couch? The couch is longer. Good job. Okay. Going on. So today, as I mentioned, we're talking about how we can use items to measure things. So we're not using rulers or anything like that. We're using other things. Now, on here, I'm going to be showing you how to do it with cubes. And if we were at school, you would use your cubes that you have to do this, but we all know, unfortunately, we're not. So at home, I want you to find something you can use to measure items. Whatever you find, it can be anything, but you have to have quite a few of them, and they all have to be the same size. So maybe you have a jar of pennies. You could use pennies to see how long items are. Maybe you have some pens that are all the same size. You could use a pen to measure how long something is. Maybe you have Fruit Loops or some kind of cereal that you could use some of to measure how long things are. So be creative. What can you find around your house that you could use to measure things? But remember, it all has to be the same size. I could not pick to use quarters and pennies together to measure things because they're not the same size. So see what you can find. Now I'm going to show you when you measure things. For example, if I was going to use my cubes, I'm going to act like I'm connecting them. And so whatever you use to measure, they all have to be touching each other. I can't put my cubes here and then leave a space and put some more here and say that whatever I'm measuring is 5 cubes long. Well, no, my cubes all have to be touching one another, not on top of them. I'm just connecting these. So whatever you choose to use, remember, you're going to start at the end of an object. You're going to line up your what you're using to measure at the end. You're going to make them touch until you get to the other end of it to tell how long that item is. So I'm going to show you on here how I could use cubes to measure how long some of these school supplies are. So I'm going to start with this highlighter up here, and I'm going to use my cubes. I'm going to put them at the end of the object. I'm going to connect them. They have to be touching all the way till I get to the other end of the object. So, about how many cubes long is this highlighter? Good. Hopefully you said it's 3 cubes long. Next, I'm going to measure the lid to the highlighter. So about how many cubes long do you think that'll be? So the lid is about 1 cube long. What about this paint, this bottle of paint over here? How long do you think that will be? I'm going to take my cubes, I'm going to line it up at the end. They all have to touch. I can't leave a space, remember, they have to touch. But with the cubes, I can connect them. So I can see that this bottle of paint is about 3 cubes long. What about this paintbrush down here? How many cubes long do you think that'll be? Let's measure it. So I gotta start at the end. I'm connecting my cubes. Can't leave space in between them. So about how many cubes long is this paintbrush? Very good, it's about 4 cubes long. What about this eraser over here? How many cubes long do you think that'll be? Now, sometimes when you measure items using non-standard units, such as cubes or pennies or whatever you're going to use, it's not going to be exact. Like I started at the end here, and it goes a little bit past the actual eraser, but I can say that it's about 2 cubes long. So I'm not saying exactly that it's 2 cubes, but it's almost 2 cubes. So that's why all of these say about. So all right, this is about 2 cubes long. And then last down here we have a pencil. So how long do you think that'll be? I'm going to start at the end. Connect my cubes. So I can see that this pencil is about 4 cubes long. Alright, so what I want you to do is I want you to find some items around your house that you can measure using whatever you chose. Maybe you have cubes, I don't know, maybe you found pennies, so see if you can find something to use to measure items. So we're going to I'm going to show you a few more practice problems of how to do this so that when you go to measure things using your non-standard unit, you will know what to use or know how to do it. My non-standard unit is still cubes. So I'm going to line up my cube at the end of my object. I'm connecting them because I can't leave a space in between them. And I can see that this horse is about 3 cubes long. When I measure this lamb or this sheep, gotta line up my cubes at the end of it. I'm connecting them, and this one is about 2 cubes long. So we're switching here. Instead of using cubes to measure, I want to show you how to use pennies in case that is what you're using, some kind of coin. You don't have to use pennies. If you have a bunch of nickels or a bunch of dimes or a bunch of quarters, you can use whatever. Just remember to pick one kind because they all have to be the same size. So if I were going to use pennies to measure this dog, I would line it up at the end of it. I would make sure that there's no space in between them, but I'm also not overlapping them. You don't want to put them on top of each other. So there's a little bit of space left over here, but remember we're telling about how long they are, not exactly. So about how many pennies long is this dog? Very good. It's about 4 pennies long. What about this dinosaur down here? How many pennies long do you think that'll be? I'm going to start at the end, line them up, make sure they are touching but not overlapping. And about how many pennies long is the dinosaur? Very good. It's about 3 pennies long. So this might be what you're using at home. And you can just pick any items around your house to measure. Maybe you want to measure the remote or your video game controller. So you can measure anything around your house to practice. So I hope you guys have fun measuring things. Like I said, be creative. Just remember how to measure things. You have to pick something that you have a bunch of that are all the same size. and you line them up at the end of an object, and they have to touch so that you can tell about how long they are. So have fun measuring, friends.